All right, here we go.
Good evening from Beijing and good morning, everyone else, or afternoon, wherever you're joining us. Thank you for joining us to our third edition of our webinar, Proposed Bylaws. My name is Michelle Chow Liu, and I'm current president of International ACAC. I'm just going to give it maybe about 30 seconds for members to join us because I see the number coming up. So in this edition, we have changed it a little bit where I believe the chat function is available. And if you're wanting to just share where you're zooming in from, can you please put it in the chat? And I believe we have about 54 members signed up, but I'm not sure how many will show up at the stage. I'm just waiting for numbers to kind of stop. Thanks, Adam. Nice to see you in LA. That's early for you. Thanks for joining us. Thanks, Kristen. Is it morning for you? I think so. Nice to see familiar names. Dr. Dre from Chicago. Is that Dr. Dre? Yes, I believe. Yay. So thank you so much. I'm joined here with Chris Trujillo, our past president, and STR, our VP for DEI. Thanks, Maria from Colombia. Awesome. So good to see everyone here. Looks like numbers are kind of trickling. The attendees are kind of stabilizing. So we're going to begin our webinar, and I'm kicking off to Chris, I believe, or is it my slides?
Yeah, I'll just go ahead and do the intro. Yeah, thanks, Michelle, so much. So I'm not Michelle Chaolu. I can't change my name for some reason, but that's okay. But here's today's panelists. Again, my name is Christopher Toribio. I am the immediate past president and the chair of the Governance and Nominating Committee for International ACAC. And we'll have the panelists introduce themselves. So go ahead.
Hello, my name is Istiar. I'm VP for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion.
And me again, Michelle Chow Liu. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Next slide, please.
All right, thank you so much. So I know this is our third edition of this bylaw. Some of you, it looks like that some of you have attended before. Some of you, it looks like it's your first time, but this is the agenda for today. So we'll do an introduction to the bylaws and the amendments that we're going to be proposing. And also, really the point of today's discussion is to have a comment and also an opportunity for you to have question and answer. So this has been ongoing for the last, I think, 3 weeks or so at this point. Many of our members have already made comments on the comment form, which you can do through the International ACAC website. Just check your email in order for you to get that link. So please take a look at that to see what our members have already said and commented and ask questions regarding the bylaws changes. But mostly the three of us have went ahead and answered some clarifying questions. But yes, you will have an opportunity right now, or when you have time, to see what our members have already commented on. So with that being said, next slide, please. And we'll turn it over to Michelle. Thank you, Michelle.
Thanks, Chris. So just to share what bylaws are. So we use the term bylaws. It is essentially a set of rules and regulations that defines the identity of our association, and it kind of outlines the principle by which we govern. You've also probably heard about policies and procedures. We also use that term P&P, and that's kind of our day-to-day work and operation. So bylaws are much different. Anything that goes through bylaws any changes, that goes through bylaws needs to be approved by our membership. Hence, we're bringing forth these two motions that has already been passed through the executive board to now be given to our membership to then vote on. We are a member-based association, and so we do want to hear from our members in terms of voting on the executive board and how we govern the association. So that's the nutshell of what a bylaw is. Next slide. So in terms of the timeline of how these two bylaws were proposed, There's two, as you recall. The first one is a NACAC requirement, which actually has been in discussion since 2022, I believe. Actually, I should say both bylaws motion that we're presenting have been in discussion since about 2022. And it's been discussed through the executive board in multiple executive board meetings that we have through Zoom, and also in our in-person meetings that we have twice a year. And once the motion is discussed, we as an executive board vote yes, no, or abstain to this motion. And these two bylaw motions have been approved by the executive board. Hence, we're now putting it forward to the membership. But before we do that, we also check in with NACAC, who is our leader organization. We are one of the 2023 affiliates of NACAC, only one that's international. And so we have shared it with NACAC to make sure that we are in compliance with our affiliate agreement. Once there's no issues there, then it is proposed to the membership, and we are currently in the discussion and comment timeframe. And once this comment timeframe concludes on April 30th, on May 2nd, the voting period will begin, and it'll be about 2 weeks voting time. Thank you. Next slide.
All right, this is me. So for maybe the first half-ish of the time we have left, or as long as it takes for questions, but we want to allow time for discussion of the other motion. I'm going to share a little bit about the bylaw, the motion that we're sharing as the DEI committee, co-authored with the GNC, of course, for expanding voting privileges, essentially within international ACAC. And so next slide, you'll see some of the basic tenets of the motion. So first off, our committee started with a mandate. We were a brand new committee to sort of start reviewing the bylaws for areas that could be improved for inclusivity. And so we want to include more members. We want to be equitable in how we're treating our members. And so I had a great subcommittee that went through and identified some areas. There were many, many areas that could be changed, could be explored. We're really going one step at a time. And this was the work of really almost 2 years now of review and conversation. So we're looking to introduce inclusive language that accurately represents our membership. We are a global membership, and we have many different people who sit at different seats of the table. It's no longer just a two-sided desk, the proverbial desk that we used to talk about. We want to include language that better defines, who's an international student versus a U.S. student, versus an overseas student. Some of the remnants that lingered from our origin, as overseas ACAC. And then we, perhaps what has spawned most discussion, we want to remove the non-voting category that really distinguishes between nonprofits and for-profits so that all members can participate in our governance. And so for some background on the next slide. All right, so currently, essentially only nonprofits are able to participate in executive board governance and are able to vote, right? And this is sort of logically precedes what I just shared. Language in the existing bylaws suggests that international means outside of the United States, whereas my favorite mantra, the US is just another country. We're working to change the language so that we're supporting colleagues, we're supporting students that are pursuing study anywhere in the world, whether they're coming to the United States, going from the United States, but more importantly, if they're not out inside the United States and going somewhere else as well, we have members in our organization that are supporting all of that. And so as well, some situations have arisen when it comes to voting privileges. Members who have gone from nonprofit to for-profit are suddenly no longer eligible to vote. And of course, there's nothing intrinsically wrong with that. But in my mind, and in many others, it is the equity issue. There are people who are doing similar types of work, and some of them are able to vote, some of them are not able to vote. And so on the next slide, we go into some more details about why we think these changes should be made. So we have an organization where folks are changing sides of seats at the table. We have an organization, again, where that inequity exists. We want to ensure that all members have the right to vote because they're essentially participating in our organization in every other way. And I want to raise the important thing that, there's a lot of talk of, well, are they doing ethical work? If they're allowed to vote, how are we going to keep unethical players from sort of governing our organization? And this bylaw change doesn't have anything to do with ethics. We require all members, whether or not they're for-profit or nonprofit, to be ethical if they're a member in the organization. And you can see that, in our policies, we're not changing that. Essentially, folks are saying that if we are allowing everyone to vote, that we have unethical members in the organization. So that is not the case, and we are not changing who is allowed to join as a member either, right? And so all the membership categories will sort of exist with the caveat we are changing that nonprofit for-profit distinction for various reasons, that being one of them. We want to allow executive board members, who have undergone an employment change to another member organization to still be able to participate, continue their term if they're on the executive board, for example. And then we want to, in terms of the language changes, we want to make the language inclusive to members who are around the world. We want to, change some of the terminology so it is more inclusive, generally just more inclusive of institutions that may be outside the United States or places where they're not referred to as college and university to post-secondary institution, change United States and its territories for a more inclusive definition of international. And so I think those are my slides, and I believe we can take some questions. I will share as questions come in, the Committee for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion worked for a year at least, sort of reviewing the bylaws, discussing sort of the challenges, the potential changes, the consequences of changing this. And then, shared it with the GNC. We worked in collaboration with the current, at the time, the VP for membership and continue to stay connected with membership as needed to review data. And then, discuss this with the executive board, right? And with the GNC reviewed if this is in line with NACAC policy and would allow us to maintain our status as an affiliate. I think we do have one more slide about membership numbers. This is a common question that comes up. How many for-profit organizations are there? And it is 5%. That's 200 people in our organization that cannot vote, that do not get a choice when it comes to making decisions in our organization. And so they're still members. They're still part of our organization. They contribute. And I think another question just slipped my mind. But I'll pause. Chris, Michelle, am I missing anything?
No, I think you covered that really well, Istiar. So if anybody has a question, please feel free to put it in the Q&A box and we'll go ahead and moderate. If we don't have any questions coming in, we can maybe talk about some of the questions, most commonly asked questions and comments that we've had on the forum to provide some clarification as well. But I'll go ahead and start with one, actually. So there was one that was pretty consistent, like, is this going to open membership? Is this going to change the way that we do membership eligibility? Is this going to open it to potentially agents who are compensated on an enrollment basis? And the answer is no. So this particular motion is really just meant to allow every member who has been approved membership the opportunity to participate in our governance. But it's not going to change the way that we do membership eligibility. And it's currently International ACAC members who are, those who are compensated on a commission basis are not eligible for membership, and this is not meant to change that. But we do have a Q&A right here. I'll go ahead and ask that. Okay, one question is, why were these 3 points joined in one and not voted individually? Good question. So the reason why it was voted and why this was discussed as one and not in three, because really it was the amendment to the bylaws. So this was an amendment to the bylaws to Article 3, which covered, Article 1 that covered 3 of these points. So Anything you want to add to that?
I think the motion was shaped that way.
Right.
Sort of as we reviewed the voting sort of privileges, we I think took note of some of the language within the bylaws that we were changing, and simply joined them. So I don't think there
Right.
was any sort of particular intent there. One motion, one vote.
Thank you, SDR. Okay, the next question is from, and if you're not name anonymous, we're going to go ahead and list your names. So, state your names. So we have one from Lynn Larson. Why not change with the current industry changes? So many dedicated people have moved on to different positions to keep the organization thriving. Don't we need to change with the industry changes? All right, thank you, Lynn. I'll take that as a comment instead of a question. So thank you for your comment there. Okay, this is another question here. Why are IECs not considered for profit? Aren't they for profit small businesses? It seems odd that they can vote, but others who work in a for profit organization are excluded. Okay, Michelle, did you want to talk about a little bit in terms of what is considered voting and non-voting when it comes to IECs? I just wanted to preface though that International ACAC does value IECs. And really what this motion is meant to do actually is to allow all IECs to vote. So with that being said, Michelle, how does the membership committee make that distinction when it comes to IECs?
Hi, Chris, you got cut off just a little bit. Let me just share this so membership categories, the way membership categories with IEC works. And just to piggyback what Chris said, yes, we do respect the work that IEC that they do, and they do great work as well. So, but what the way the membership category goes is that if you are an IEC in the individual one, you are considered an individual membership category. So we have 4 categories, if you will. So we have individual membership, organization, secondary school, and post-secondary school. Now, the membership committees, they vet applications coming in from the individual categories and the organization categories. Okay, now individual categories, we have our IECs in independent, and we have IECs that are working no more than 3 in a company or an organization. That's considered an individual. Our for-profit or organization membership category is for-profit orgs, nonprofit orgs, and CBOs. Sorry, let me just add, individual one also has retiree professionals and students as well in that category. So the way membership categories is laid out is that if you're working in an organization that has 4 or more IECs together, you're considered a for-profit org. And that means you're in the organization category. And if you have 3 or less, you're in the individual category, even though you're all an IEC working together as 3. Now, this membership category has been in existence since before I came on as VP for membership, and that's just the structure of our membership category. I will say that we have discussed how this shapes and will be during my time as VP for membership, and I think there was talks about changing this, though that never got to the table. But yes, but that not to say that we won't look into it again, but just at the moment, our policy and procedures and our membership categories is how it's been laid out.
Thank you, Michelle. I'm trying to toggle between the webinar chat and also the Q&A, but there's some good discussion regarding this topic right here. So I'm just going to go ahead and read it. So Dr. Andrea Maldonado said, "No, all IECs can vote. Depends on how many staff members they have," which you mentioned before. Kristen Driesen says, "Additionally, if an IEC member of NACAC, if an IEC is a member of NACAC as an individual, they're able to be members of international ACAC as an individual." Nicole Ribeiro said, "What Andrea said, if you join a partnership and have 2 assistants, you lose voting rights. So a lot of people have been dishonest in order to vote. Fixing the bylaws hold people accountable to be fully honest about their structures." Okay. And Maria Lucia Puerta says, there's a question here. And does that also apply to the eligibility to be elected for the board? Yes, that is correct. So currently, only voting members of International ECAC are eligible to apply for board service. And what this motion is also meant to do is to ensure, is to give that opportunity for all members to both vote and also to apply and serve on the executive board. Okay, let's
There's a good
see.
question there that says, I hear a problem to solve is elected members maintaining positions if they transition to a for-profit position during the term. And so why not amend the bylaws for this specific scenario? Elected members can finish their terms even with any change in employer. So that's correct. We've actually had quite a number of scenarios of perfectly wonderful members, executive board members who changed position to a for-profit organization, and thus became ineligible to vote and unable to continue serving on the executive board. So they had to step down.
Yeah, and there was actually a recent situation where there was two members of the executive board. One transitioned to a organization that was very similar to one that was already serving, and unfortunately was not able to complete their term. But to answer the question, why not amend the bylaws for the specific scenario? Elected members can finish their terms even after a change in employer. This is what this referendum actually does. It's going to allow elected members to finish their terms. So that's also the part of the rationale of this bylaw change.
Yeah, and I think to maybe if the question's coming from a different angle too, you know, why not make the bylaw more specific for just this scenario? I think this is one of several scenarios we're looking to resolve, right? Because simply allowing them to stay allowing people to stay, you know, with a change in employer, you know, doesn't really address people being able to join the executive board, right? And sort of you then also create an inequity. It's like, well, say I started my new job 1 month after joining the board, suddenly I have a full term as a for-profit compared to people who may not have had opportunity. So definitely one of the several problems we're hoping to address as we asked sort of the questions, you know, what is the dividing line? What's causing the issue? It really was that distinction between for-profit and nonprofits. Cool. Chris, back to you.
Oh, yeah, thank you, Sarah. So we have a couple of more comments / questions. Great. Actually, I'm gonna go ahead and okay, yeah. So go in order. So in this situation, should we be making a decision? Wait. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Follow up on IEC. So why would we not trust someone to vote if they have decided to add someone to their practice, making them have 3+ people in their organization? It's not like someone's care for the industry just because they decided to support more students. Okay, thank you so much. I'll take that as a comment and not a question. Point taken though. Thank you. The next one is, in this situation, should we be making this decision based on a particular person and their participation in the board with a job change, or should this reflect what we believe if fundamentally and philosophically important to the association? I believe this should not be based on individual personnel. Okay, thank you. I'll take that as a comment unless somebody wants to comment back on that. No, okay. Another one is to Nicole's comment, shouldn't the dishonesty be then looked at an ethical problem that is part of our expectations from all? Well taken, good point. We'll take that as a comment and not a question. And Esther, you do have a question here. Can you speak a little bit more about the arbitrariness of nonprofit / for-profit status across global lines? Certain institutions also do not fit in these categories neatly.
Happy to, and this has come up several times. And so those who I've spoken with before, maybe been at the previous webinar or read through the comments, will know that I've sort of made the argument that nonprofit and for-profit distinctions that we abide by as International ECAC in the current bylaws are very US-centric, right? And so as a nonprofit is defined in the US, we have nonprofit and for-profit categories. That makes sense for a very US-centric and heavy organization, but we are not. Many, if not the majority, right, of our members are outside the United States. And so to try and determine what a nonprofit is, it's not to say that other countries and places don't have nonprofit status, but those are defined differently. And so businesses that have the same mission, same practices, may qualify for a nonprofit status in one place, but not in another. We're essentially saying, a US nonprofit and a Hungary nonprofit and a Kazakhstan nonprofit are the same, and a for-profit in all those places is also the same, which is patently untrue, right? There are countries where if you are a private school charging tuition, you're automatically a for-profit. Whether you're a high school, whether you're a college, if you charge tuition and you're not run by the government, you may be classified as for-profit. So we are working to remove that inequity again, so that members have consistency in how they sort of share what they're doing, how we define and include them in participation. I'll roll in the next comment right now. Actually, 501c3, we are a nonprofit ourselves, chartered in the US, somewhat bound by US definitions, but there's nothing that says we have to define the inclusion of our members by US laws and definitions as 501c3. So, we can include or decide who votes and doesn't vote on our own. And there's been a lot of discussion to, will this take us out of alignment from other ACACs? Yes, it will. A lot of other ACACs haven't really explored or moved to take away this for-profit, nonprofit distinction because they operate almost exclusively within a United States setting. Their membership, they cater to a US membership. We do not. We cater to a global membership, and we are very different from all the other ACAC affiliates in that way. And so we serve our members, not the other ACAC members, and that is why we're looking to make this bylaw change so that our members can participate in our organization.
Just to add to that, STR, we've looked at our numbers now, and 60% of our members are outside the US, Canada, and 40% is in US, Canada. Looking at our membership numbers at the moment.
Great. And with that being said, Esther, in terms of like us of international ACAC, if this amendment was to pass, it's setting a precedent. However, again, when these bylaws amendments are proposed to the membership, it is vetted through NACAC to ensure that we're compliant with their affiliate agreement. So if this if this amendment is passed, it's still going to be compliant. As what the compliance really is that each affiliate just needs to have a voting category. A non-voting category is not a requirement, but it can be used at the discretion of each affiliate. So even if we don't have a non-voting category, it's still compliant with our NACAC affiliate agreement. Okay, so a couple more comments. Thank you, Nicole. Profit versus nonprofit is a tax issue. That is correct. What's considered a nonprofit, even in our definition to an extent, is actually a 501c3. Okay, here's another comment. Going to DET, I'm guessing that's Duolingo English test, gets you kicked off the board. Going to college boards allows you to stay. I don't think one test prep organization is radically different. Thank you for the comment, and that is actually true. Lynn Larson also has a comment or question. I'm going to read this through. Or if someone moves to a university to Concorsia or similar, that makes no sense to me. Some of those former members may be doing contract work or hanging until something else becomes available or they intend to stay. I don't think we want to lose talent just because a job description or employer. Thank you, Lynn, for that comment. That's well taken. Yeah. All right, any other Q&A? You see any questions in the chat? Oh, there's a lot. Okay. Okay, this is I think toward you. Does this mean that those who are employed by predatory organizations can change ridiculous sums of money and guarantee admission to a specific set of colleges and universities, now vote and become part of the executive board? Actually, I'm trying to understand what this question means. So does this mean that those who are employed by predatory organizations that charge ridiculous sums of money and guarantee admission to a specific set of colleges and universities can now vote and become part of the executive board? Well, Michelle, if you have, let's say if you do have a member, right, a prospective member that has applied to international ACAC and they are doing predatory practices, is that something that the membership committee actually just looks at as well when they're determining membership?
So I think
So
this
let's,
question yeah, we should probably just go back to how we vet members to be
yes,
part of International ACAC. I mean, it is quite a stringent process to be a member of International ACAC. The membership committee spends weeks, sometimes months on an application, going back and forth with the applicant and also the referee. It's quite a lot of work, and I do trust our membership committee do a great job of vetting. And a couple years ago, we've also changed the policy and procedure where anyone from International AC can be a referee. In the past, it was only secondary school member and post-secondary school members are allowed to be a referee. However, if the membership committee views that the referee that was given is not speaking truthfully, or maybe they need more information, they will reach out and ask for more. So I feel like currently, if there's someone that's doing not best practice, we don't have a way, a mission practice and the DOJ thing that happened a couple years ago. We don't have a way to govern in terms of the governance to deal not deal to handle that in the sense of kicking them out. But we do have members sometimes sharing practices from other organizations that's part of International ACAC, and then the membership committee works closely with mission practices to kind of look into what the the complaint is, and just see
sorry,
if
Michelle, you're
we
breaking up a
can
little bit.
resolve share that out publicly. Sorry, my internet's kind of kicking me off, but
No problem.
can you
I
hear
think
me?
we kind of got what
Good.
you're saying. So also let me just clarify one thing, like there is a vetting process when it comes to membership. So even getting through the membership process. However, International ACAC is a member-based organization. We do rely on the knowledge and information that we can get from members. So if you do see an organization that you feel has these predatory practices, please go ahead and report that to International ACAC so that we can take a look as well. Although these practices, although these membership practices are in place, we may miss something. So, and we do rely on your diverse knowledge and also what you know and insight and things like that. So please help us out when it comes to that as well. Okay, another question is, can you offer some insight to the makeup of the for-profit organizations that are membership? Of those, how many of those for-profits are orgs like DET, touring companies versus school-based outside the US that are considered by their home country as for profit?
Do we track that? Because my
Let's bring
question
it
would
up a
be if
little.
we're even able to pull that, because once you're in a for-profit category, I don't know if I mean, obviously there's a membership application and folks are vetted, but Michelle might.
I do want to comment on something though regarding this comment here or this question here of those, that's actually a really good point. There are several secondary schools, I must say, that are members of International ACA that are considered for profit. That it's not a nonprofit-based organization. It is an institution that is generating profit through tuition of students and other mechanisms, and they're still voting members of International ACAC. Now, again, this is not to exclude anybody from the vote. So what this motion is meant to do actually is to include all members who have been through the membership process the opportunity to be in our governance or to participate in our governance. But we can definitely get that data. However, school-based secondary schools that are voting members of International ACC, they're not asked in terms of how they receive their profit, and that's something that we actually don't track. So I will.
That's right. Yeah, we don't track. As long as you apply as a high school member, secondary school member, you are automatically in that category, and we don't have a for-profit high school or non-for-profit high school category. We don't track that
Absolutely. And really what this
detail.
motion is meant to do is just to eliminate some of these inconsistencies. So Istiar, do you have anything to add before we move on to the next question?
Nope,
Okay.
covered it.
Okay, so another question is, because there's so few for-profit members, I cannot recall engaging members from a for-profit organization during the past couple of conferences, so I don't know how well aligned they are to International ACAC's mission. For example, profiles of for-profit members, DET, ACT.
So yeah, I mean, offhand, some examples of nonprofits. ACT is actually in the nonprofit category, if I'm not mistaken, along with College Board, notwithstanding ACT's recent news and changes, right? So prior to this, ACT, College Board, IELTS, ETS, which does TOEFL, have been in nonprofit categories. Duolingo English tests have been in for-profit. Yeah, Initial View.
I believe IB is also considered nonprofit.
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
And that's an
just wanna
example I've used in the past. You know, Duolingo versus IELTS and TOEFL. They're in different categories, right? Even though they all do English testing.
I also just want to share that we will put the data up afterwards. Thankfully, we still have about a week in this comment discussion period. So for those who are here and we don't have the data at the moment, we will get those data onto the comment form.
Okay, this is a good question here. Do these proposed bylaw changes affect who can be a member or just who can join and apply for leadership positions? Good question. This bylaw change is really meant to include all members of International ACC the ability to participate in our governance, which also includes voting and also applying for executive board positions. But it's not changing the way that we do membership or who can be members of International ACC. It's just this is added value to someone's membership who's been approved to be a member of International ACAC. So no, that's not going to change the way that membership is going to be doing reviewing of applications of those who want to be members of International ACAC.
I think the quick follow-up to that, you know, commonly is, well, can commissioned agents, you know, who double dip, you know, who don't abide by our code become members? Just as Chris said, they are not allowed to become members now because if this bylaw were to go through, you know, we're not addressing who can become a member.
Okay, so it sounds like the issues people have with this proposed change isn't about the bylaw itself, but worries about ethics. Should a follow-up process be considered for members to report ethics issues in a more streamlined way? Thank you for that question. Based on a lot of the comments that we've been receiving on this motion, it does seem like a lot of the concerns are the issues of whether or not a member is practicing ethical practices or it's being ethical in the admission process, which ultimately serves our students. Now, should we follow up with another streamlined process post membership? That's something that we can take to the executive board to discuss for sure. Thank you so much. Next one is regarding the for-profit members. It would be helpful if we could have some information about the broad categories.
Share that, and I want to share that. Oh, sorry, Chris.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Michelle. It would be helpful if we
sorry,
could have
I think
some...
Chris, my connection. Yeah, my connection is a little off, but I was going to say that just to kind of piggyback what you said earlier, our missions and practice committee are making an intentional effort at the moment to run a lot of ethics workshops, and there's one at the pre-conference happening this this July at Western, and so that's their concentrated efforts right now to kind of share ethical practice and best practices to our membership. So that's just to answer that ethical question.
Oh, thank you, Michelle. Okay, so I'm going to read the last one that I just read. So regarding the for-profit members, it would be helpful if we could have some information about the broad categories those organizations fall into and the numbers in each. Okay, thank you for that comment. Next question is to anonymous attendee. Regarding not engaging members from for-profit organizations, come into the exhibit hall. Thank you for that comment. Yes, we have a wide list of exhibitors this year at the conference, so please go ahead and engage. Next comment is thanks for hosting the session. It clarifies for me, we can welcome full participation from members who are both mission aligned and accountable to shareholders, investors, as long as they can satisfy our ethical thresholds. Thank you so much. Okay, any other comments or questions?
We should probably move to the next motion.
I can just wrap up since I'm mainly focused on this motion and want to yield time for the next. But just as VP of DEI, I actually genuinely appreciate the engaged conversation, the questions, a lot of conversations. A bit taken aback, there's even been a call for the abolition of the DEI committee in response to this motion. But I think for the most part, folks are here really looking out for the good of the organization. And it's rare that I've seen a motion warrant so much discussion. And so in my mind, often if a decision isn't an important one, often it doesn't have questions, it doesn't have disagreement. And so truly I welcome, the disagreement, the questions, and thank everyone for bringing these forward through the process. So I will let people go on to the next motion for discussion. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Esther. And with that being said, yes, let's continue these conversations. So if you have more comments to provide or questions, please submit the comment form. So let's move on to a proposal. The next proposal, it's eliminating the NACAC National Association College Admission Counseling membership requirement for executive board service. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so here's the overview of the proposal. So this aims to amend Article 3 of the International ACAC Bylaws to remove the prerequisite of NACAC membership for executive board service. This excludes the presidential team, who must remain active members of NACAC for international ACAC to remain compliant with its affiliate agreement. So here's some background. Initially, NACAC membership was mandatory for all executive board members due to the requirement of attending the annual NACAC conference. Okay, next question. Next slide, please. And here's the rationale. So the executive board has voted to waive the responsibility for executive board members to attend an annual NACAC conference, with the exception of the international ACAC presidential team. So removing this prerequisite will alleviate the financial burden of board members, as they no longer need to purchase NACAC membership. This alteration may also encourage more members to consider serving on the executive board. So with that, next slide. Okay, so it's a pretty straightforward motion. So essentially what this aims to do is to eliminate the requirement of a NACAC membership for executive board members. So with that being said, if you have any comments or questions, feel free to put in the chat. We'll guide our discussion based on the comments and the questions that we receive right now. Okay. Okay, so first question is, okay, I'm gonna go to Kirsten Driesen, because I think the comment from Nicole was from the previous one. But Nicole, please clarify if your question is referring to this one or the previous motion. Okay, so in the past, there has been financial support for members to join in the past, there's been financial support for members to both join and attend the NACAC conference, which helped alleviate the burden for board members. Is that financial support being withdrawn? Okay. Good question. Michelle, would you like to clarify on that as our chair of the executive board?
Yes, it is. So you're correct, Kristen, there is a stipend still, and actually the stipend has been increased since 2 years ago because of the inflation of travel and cost. So there is an increase in stipend. However, as we know, even with the increase in stipend, there is a lot of fees that needs to be paid by the board member that isn't essentially covered. So but that's separate from the NACAC fees, the membership fee. Membership fees are currently paid for by executive board members. We are not saying they shouldn't. We're encouraging if they have the means to, but we don't. The reason for this motion is to not make it obligatory, and so that those who want to serve on the board, and those who are not currently in the United States and perhaps not NACAC members already, they don't need to be in order to serve on the board. But when they join when they join executive board, we will share with them kind of the collaboration with NACAC and the way we work with NACAC, but we don't want it to be a hindrance for them to join. And then that answer the question. And if they need funding, we certainly will. We do have that in discussion with the presidential team and the executive board about that.
Okay, any other? Okay, here's a question. Personally, I expect board members to be part of the parent organization, of which International ACs is affiliate. Inclusivity is great, but we need to uphold standards as well. Just provide enough funding to solve the issue. So, yeah, I just kind of want to clarify in terms of how our relationship with NACAC has evolved over the course of the last couple of years. We've actually done a lot in terms of engaging with NACAC currently, even if this motion has been passed. One of the things that we've actually done is to nominate a rising star for NACAC for our affiliate, which is actually a really exciting program for International ACAC. We were able to fund a new member of NACAC through the Rising Star program. So we have a lot of opportunities for even our members to engage with NACAC, which we haven't done before. So we understand that, we have an obligation to NACAC in terms of the presidential team, going to the conference, going to trainings, and so forth. We still have our admissions practices committee in terms of we provide professional development to ensure that admissions practices, especially that ethical guide, is accessible to all of our members. But there's a lot of barriers in terms of us obligating our board members to be members of International ACAC. One is the financial, one is the time. As the NACAC conference, to be perfectly honest, doesn't necessarily align with competing events that are priorities for individual institutions and schools. So with that being said, we're not precluding anybody from being members of NACAC. That's something that's highly encouraged. And again, this has gone through a vetting process with NACAC. And if this were to approve, NACAC is completely okay for us to have this motion pass, if it does pass as well.
Also, just to add that we do have 2 in-person executive board meetings, which is very important that we have deliberately, even after COVID, make sure that we do hold in-person meetings on top of our Zoom, because we meet every 6 weeks on Zoom already. So we have those meetings. We have our July conference board meeting, and we also have one that is in September that purposely leads up to the NACAC conference, because we understand that that has just been the nature of when that conference is. And also those who attend NACAC, there is a annual general meeting that we hold at the NACAC conference. So we are encouraging executive board members new to be NACAC members, though if they for some reason cannot, then they are still welcome to be on executive board. I can say that every member at the moment, executive board member, are NACAC members. So.
Okay, next question. Is there any data on whether the additional travel costs and impact disproportionately impacts the participation and leadership of secondary school members who are parents? That's a good question. Michelle, would you like to answer that as a parent yourself?
I'm trying to wrap my head around this question. Is there any data on whether the additional travel costs and impacts the participation leadership of secondary members who are parents?
To rephrase the
I'm not
question,
sure.
are caregivers currently less able to participate because of the additional travel costs?
I don't think so. I mean, if we look at who's on the board and who's a parent, there are several of us that are parents, and I think going into the executive board position, we are asked to get a institutional support from our institution, but also I think we should probably add like a family support signed document as well, because I think our family members know how much work we put into this volunteer position. I don't believe so. I don't believe, I mean, like I said, there is a stipend. And again, though our members are paying out of pocket as well, because they may not have the institution support in the monetary sense. But yes, but they do, but we do provide a certain amount of support in terms of money. The next question, should I go to the next question, Chris?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
My concern with this would be losing our voice with NACAC. Do you have feedback that people are not applying for the board because of this requirement to be a NACAC member? Do you want to answer that, Chris? Or I can.
Yeah, good question. That's a really interesting one because I mean, through what executive board service really is meant to do is to serve the affiliate of International ACAC. And throughout the years of being on the board, the last three years for me, there's those who've had voiced that they just want to be on the board just to be a member of NACAC, just to attend the NACAC conference. And really what this motion really does is to ensure that, being a NACAC member or being able to attend the NACAC conference, it's just part of being on the executive board. Is that really your priorities of the executive board is to serve the role that you've been elected to? So I don't think necessarily that we're going to lose our voice with NACAC. I think Kristen actually has a follow-up question to talk about beyond what we've done in terms of awards. So let's talk about that real quick. Can you talk about some of the engagement beyond the awards recognition? I want to talk about specifically about this grant called GAIN. GAIN is a new grant that each affiliate can apply to up to $10,000 from NACAC to support our initiatives. So for the past 2 years, we've successfully received $10,000 that we proposed as a presidential team to support a lot of international ACAC's initiatives. We want to thank NACAC actually for that opportunity, for that funding, because where that funding went to was 3 very specific things. One was actually to provide funding for our board members who are outside of the United States, additional travel funds to attend the NACAC conference. A big portion of that funding actually went to the Scholars Program, the IAS Scholars Program, especially when travel costs coming to our specific conference has increased. Visas have been a lot more difficult to attain. So a lot of that funding went to that as well. And the second one actually went to supporting the NACAC Vancouver College Fair, as we do recognize that is our one fair that happened last year, or last fall. Well, there was 2, but this one specifically, the largest one was our affiliate fair. So we're continuing to seek NACAC for this financial support, to be honest, and engaging and letting them know about the programs that we're doing, because that's incredibly important. I think those are some examples in terms of how we're continuing to engage in NACAC.
But let me add, Chris, that we do, as executive board, we've invited leadership from NACAC to come to our board member meeting, executive board member meeting in July, and I believe we'll go. And in that meeting, it was the NACAC leadership, the chair, and I think former chair as well, that was there to just share kind of the collaboration that we do with NACAC, and changing that, that we are appreciative of each other and we are collaborative of each other. We've also supported NACAC in the sense of just being at the I think initial one, I guess, the London fair, the university fair in London. I was in attendance as well. And we also had someone from HQ headquarters was there as well to just show support. And so in terms of a voice, as you know, because the delegate, assembly was disbanded, and also delegates were no longer part of kind of the NACAC. So now our delegates are called representatives. And I think that NACAC has allowed us to now kind of reinvent what delegates are in International ACAC, which is also super exciting, because then we're such a global organization that now we can look at representatives and kind of be more intentional in who those members are on our executive board, and kind of give us the platform to be regional represented as opposed to the delegates to NACAC. But in terms of our voice, I mean, we're still very much in line and talks with NACAC.
I also wanted to add to, Nestor, I want you to chime in on this as well. There's actually 3 executive board roles that we do provide funding to support going to the GWI conference. So that's actually really brand new as well too. So it's the vice president for IAS, the Inclusion, Access, and Success Committee, and also the vice president of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and also I believe it's the immediate, I think it's the president-elect that we also provide funding to attend that conference. Istiyar, do you want to talk a little bit about your engagement with GWI?
Yes, we had a full crew, just like you mentioned, Chris, that was there at GWI last year. The funding is built into the PMP, I believe, is where it is. And just as much as it's a vehicle for our executive board to gain skills around DEI and inclusion and understand sort of the policymaking that we can bring to our organization, we bring the international perspective, not, and other members as well, but we send leadership and dedicated members to attend that conference to remind folks that inclusion, diversity, equity, it's not just about a US-centric lens. And so there were some great conversations and ability to engage with NACAC there in a very particular space when it comes to access and inclusion.
Absolutely. Okay. Oh, here's a comment from our question from Johanna Fishbein. I believe that the executive board has a role to advocate for our affiliate, not just to serve the affiliate. And to do that, our executive board members need to be NACAC members if we remain an NACAC affiliate. The issues that come up that are being discussed and the understanding that NACAC operates are so important. I believe that as long as we remain an affiliate of NACAC, then the entire board needs to have a voice within the association and our affiliate, the conference, the online mailings, chats, etc. NACAC membership is the conference and so much more. Thank you, Johanna, for that comment. Okay, is there anything else in the chat or? Yeah.
I think there's one more question, which is why not change the requirement to attend NACAC instead of changing both? Sorry, Chris, did you want to answer that one or should I?
Yeah, go ahead and answer, because why not just change the requirement to attend NACAC instead of changing? But yeah, go ahead and answer, Michelle.
Yeah, so we actually we did made it we made an option for members who perhaps cannot make it to NACAC conference or because their institution funding does not allow them to attend because it becomes a 7-day, almost a 7-day week to be at NACAC with the executive board meeting in the beginning of it. And so we made it an option last year where the NACAC conference is optional, but the in-person is still a requirement to be on the board. But we've also been flexible if for any reasons that an executive board member cannot make the executive board meeting. We've also now learned from COVID times that you can Zoom in, or we can do it via a platform, electronic platform. So they can Zoom in or to executive board meeting if they cannot make it. But that's a question that they will then present to the president team to discuss and essentially be flexible. But why not change it? We're going back to, we just want to make it not an obligatory requirement, but and Chris says, we're not precluding them to not be membership, but we're not requiring them to be, because again, most of us come from a very privileged background in terms of our institution can pay for NACAC membership, but not many, not all executive board members have that luxury. And so we want to make sure that if they cannot, for whatever reason, it's not a requirement. But they are obviously are still encouraged to be members.
Yeah, and I also just wanted to add, there is a advocating voice for NACAC, and that's actually the 3-person presidential team. So we're also advocating on behalf of the work of our vice presidents and other board members, so when we bring up a lot of the issues that are, to NACAC, it is a collective voice amongst the executive board. So, I mean, there's already built-in representation in terms of our affiliate. Whether or not that the entire board being members of NACAC can amplify that voice, that's something that, we have to think about as well. But there is already a voice. We have the 3-person presidential team. We have funding for members to go to GWI, to answer the listserv question, yes, that's one of the reasons why we would want our executive board members to be members of NACAC to get those updates. But again, we just don't want it to make it obligatory, especially if there's a financial burden for somebody to serve on the executive board. Okay. Christian Driesen says, just a comment, I just want to echo Johanna's remarks on the board's role is to lead and serve the affiliate. And one of the best ways to do both is to advocate as members of NACAC. Thank you, Kristen. Okay, Nicole Ribeiro said, I apologize if I butchered the last name. So do we have any regional data on who pays for their own membership versus who has their school paid? NACAC membership is pricey out of pocket with exchange rates, and that has been discussed as a primary barrier here in Latin America. Good question, Nicole. We don't actually have that regional data, but what we can say though is that all of us as member of NACAC membership is required. That has come out of our own pockets or our own institutions' pockets. You can also break down in terms of institutions as well, of who's able to pay and who's able to not, but everybody has to pay for their NACAC membership. So yeah. Okay, any other questions?
I just want to be mindful of time as we're at 9:01.
Oh, are we at time already? Okay, great. Well, that also
Mhm.
adds to Istiar's point. That is, if there's comments, then it's an important motion to discuss. So thank you so much for everybody to attend today's webinar. Michelle, would you like to close it out for us?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, Chris and STR for the work that you've done, and also your executive board, and DI, GNC, for the work that you've done with these motions. I think it's a really important discussion to have, and as we understand, we may be changing the makeup of International ACAC. It is. We do care about the association very much, and it is to forward looking and to see how we can better our association for membership. We would encourage everyone to vote. I know voting has been interesting in the last few rounds of election votings. We only get about 32% of votings, and so if you can please encourage those who can vote to vote for these bylaws, which will open up discussion period will end April 30th, and the motion voting period will begin May 2nd to May 16th. And we will send reminders in all the social media platform and emails. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful day, evening. And yes, continue to comment. Please vote. For those who have the ability to vote, your voice does matter in this. So whether you agree or not, vote yes, vote no, abstain, but just go ahead and put a ballot because that's something that is included with your membership and it really does make a difference. So thank you so much, everyone. Bye.
Yeah, everyone.
Bye. Bye.